The ambassador's claw slammed down on the podium, echoing through the vast chamber of the Galactic Conquered like a thunderclap. Humans are hereby declared subservient species. Your primitive vessels, your unruly expansions, they end now. You will serve the conquered or face dissolution. Captain Elena Vasquez didn't flinch from her seat in the human delegation's shadowed alcove. Her fingers tightened around the armrest, knuckles whitening as the holographic feeds from Earth flickered with riots and blackouts. Beside her, Dr. Kyren leaned forward, his eyes narrowing behind thick glasses, whispering, "They're not bluffing." That vote was rigged. Half the council abstained under duress. Across the chamber, the alien envoys stirred, the towering insectoid Zorath clicking mandibles in approval, the ethereal gas form Lyraxi swirling in smug eddies. Elena's mind raced. Subservient meant colonies stripped, tech confiscated, billions herded into labor grids. No, not while she breathed. She stood abruptly, her uniform crisp against the chamber's sterile glow, and activated her comlink. "All units, this is Vasquez. Protocol Epsilon is greenlit. Repeat, extermination active." Kai's head snapped toward her. "Elena, that's necessary," she cut him off, voice low and steel-edged. The chamber's translators buzzed with confusion as her words hit the universal feed. Gasps rippled from the delegations. The Zorath envoy reared back, its compound eyes glinting. Alarms wailed suddenly. Not from the Concord systems, but from the human ships docked outside. Elena had timed it perfectly. The declaration broadcast live to every colony, every fleet. On the main view screen, a squadron of UNSC destroyers broke formation, weapons hot, targeting the Concord's enforcer vessels. The Lyraxi delegate coalesced into a furious vortex. "Treachery! Guards, seize them!" But Elena was already moving, Kai scrambling after her as security drones whirred to life. She dodged a stun beam that scorched the alcove wall, grabbing a fallen envoy's access pad. "Engineering override now, Kai." He patched in, sweat beading on his brow, fingers flying over the interface. "Firewalls cracking, got it. Shutting down their perimeter fields." The chamber doors sealed with a hiss, locking out the guards. Outside, explosions bloomed in the void. Human fighters swarming like hornets, their railguns punching through alien shields with brutal efficiency. Elena watched the feed, a grim smile tugging her lips. They'd planned for this in secret war rooms back on Mars, when whispers of the vote first leaked. But the Zorath ambassador wasn't done. It lunged across the podium, claws extended, aiming for Elena's throat. She sidestepped, years of zero-G combat training kicking in, and drove her elbow into its underbelly. The creature screeched, staggering as Kai hurled a disruptor grenade from his kit, stolen Concord tech repurposed. The blast filled the air with ozone, scrambling the remaining drones. Elena pinned the ambassador down, her knee on its thorax. "Tell your council humanity doesn't serve. We exterminate threats." The creature's mandibles worked futilely. "You primitives. The Concord will crush." A secondary alarm blared, breach in the docking bays. Elena hauled Kai up. "Time to go. Fleets covering our extract." They sprinted for the emergency hatch, the chamber devolving into chaos behind them. Envoys fleeing, translators glitching with panicked overrides. As they sealed the hatch and dropped into the maintenance shafts, Elena patched through to the lead destroyer. "Admiral Torres, status?" "Shields holding, Captain. We've taken out 3 cruisers, but their reinforcements are jumping in." "What's your ETA?" 5 minutes. "Hold the line." Kai glanced at her, breathless. "This is just the start, isn't it?" "Extermination protocol, it's all or nothing." Elena nodded, climbing a rung toward the flickering lights above. "Damn right." They declared war. "We finish it." The shaft trembled with distant detonations, the first real taste of the firestorm they'd unleashed. Captain Alara Voss gripped the console edge as the ship's alarms blared, red lights pulsing across the bridge like a frantic heartbeat. Her fingers itched for the firing controls, but she held back, eyes locked on the view screen where the alien fleet loomed, a glittering armada of crystalline hulls that dwarfed their lone frigate. "Status, Reyes?" she barked, her voice cutting through the din. Engineer Marco Reyes wiped sweat from his brow, his wiry frame hunched over a flickering holographic display. "Shields at 40%, ma'am. That last volley from the Zorath cruisers nearly breached us. We're leaking atmosphere and engineering. Nothing critical yet, but if they hit us again..." He trailed off, jabbing a finger at the schematic where warning icons flared like angry stars. Ilara nodded sharply, her jaw set in that unyielding line her crew knew meant no retreat. Brave to a fault, she'd led them through pirate skirmishes and asteroid storms, always with a plan that bent physics just enough to win. But this? The Zorath Empire's declaration had come hours ago, broadcast across human space, all Terran vessels subservient or destroyed. And in response, the hidden protocols buried in every military AI had activated. Extermination mode, a last-ditch human ingenuity to turn the tide. "Lock onto their command ship," she ordered. "We're not running. Not today." Lieutenant Kira Hale, the team's sharpshooter with a cautious streak that balanced Alara's fire, leaned in from her station. Her dark eyes scanned the tactical overlay, fingers dancing over keys. "Captain, their formations are adaptive. Those drones are already shifting to counter our vectors. If we engage directly, we might take out one cruiser, but the fleet will swarm us." She paused, her voice steady but laced with the weight of doubt. "Protocol or not, we're one ship against dozens." The bridge shuddered as another energy beam grazed their hull, sparks erupting from a panel nearby. Marco cursed under his breath, patching the breach with a jury-rigged seal that hissed steam. Alara straightened, ignoring the acrid smell of burning circuits. "That's why we don't charge blind." "Marco, reroute power to the forward arrays. Overclock the plasma coils like we did on Vega Prime. Kira, plot a slingshot trajectory around that gas giant. We'll use their own gravity well against them." Marco's hands flew across the controls, his witty sarcasm bubbling up despite the chaos. "Overclocking again? You're gonna melt my favorite conduits, Cap, but hey, if it means not becoming Zorath janitors, I'm in." The ship groaned in protest as engines thrummed to life, veering toward the swirling clouds of the nearby nebula. Kira's brow furrowed, but she complied, her caution yielding to the team's rhythm. "Trajectory set. We'll skim the outer edge, buy us 30 seconds of cover, but if their sensors pierce the interference..." She let the implication hang, the risk clear. Exposure meant annihilation. Ilara's gaze never left the view screen, where the Zorath ships began to pivot, their elegant forms humming with alien precision. The extermination protocol hummed in the ship's core, its algorithms whispering targeting data, human grit encoded into code, ready to unleash hell. "They think we're prey," she murmured, more to herself than the crew. "Time to show them what subservient really means." As the frigate plunged into the nebula's haze, visibility dropped to streaks of violet and gold, the alien fleet's signatures blurring into ghostly echoes. Marco whooped softly when the shield stabilized, the overclock holding just enough, but Kira's console beeped urgently, a Zorath interceptor breaking formation, closing fast through the clouds. "Brace!" Ilara shouted, slamming the alert klaxon. The ship bucked as the interceptor's weapons fire lanced out, missing by meters. In the tense silence that followed, Ilara's mind raced. The protocol demanded escalation, but survival meant adaptation. "Kira, target its engines." "Marco, prep the countermeasures. We're making our stand here." The crew moved as one, their camaraderie a quiet force amid the storm. No speeches, just actions stacking like bricks in a wall against the void. The interceptor loomed larger, its crystalline spikes glinting through the mist, and Ilara's hand hovered over the firing sequence, the weight of humanity's defiance in her grip. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the console edge as the ship's alarms blared, red lights pulsing across the bridge like arterial blood. Her team, Dr. Kai Ren, the wiry engineer with a perpetual squint from poring over schematics, and Sergeant Mira Locke, broad-shouldered and unyielding, huddled around the holographic display. The alien declaration had hit 48 hours ago, a broadcast from the Coalition's core worlds labeling humanity as a subservient species fit only for labor castes. Now their response echoed back. "Extermination protocol active," a unified signal from Earth's hidden bunkers. But out here on the fringe, in the void between stars, it felt like a whisper against the storm. "They're vectoring in," Kai muttered, his fingers dancing over the interface, pulling up trajectories. 3 Coalition scouts, sleek teardrop shapes, had jumped into the system unannounced, their engines flaring against the asteroid field's debris. Ilara's jaw tightened. The protocol wasn't just words, it meant every human asset striking first, no quarter. But they were outnumbered. Their frigate, the Relentless, a relic jury-rigged from pre-contact salvage. Mira leaned in, her voice a low growl. "We hit 'em hard, Cap. Protocol says no survivors." She cracked her knuckles, eyes flicking to the weapon's readouts. Ilara nodded, but caution gnawed at her. These weren't mindless drones. Coalition crews were a mix of species. some possibly salvageable allies if the Subservient's edict fractured their unity. Still, the stakes burned clear. Fail here, and the Relentless became the first casualty, a beacon for the Empire's retaliation. "Divert power to forward arrays," Alara ordered, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Kai complied, rerouting from life support. Air recyclers hummed lower, the bridge growing stuffy. The lead scout ship loomed larger on the hollow, its sensors pinging their position. Ilara's mind raced through contingencies. The protocol demanded aggression, but survival twisted it into something sharper. The first shot came without warning, a lance of plasma that grazed their hull, shearing off a sensor array in a burst of sparks. Alarms shrieked anew. "Evasive!" Alara barked, and Mira punched the thrusters, the Relentless lurching sideways into the asteroid swarm. Rocks tumbled past viewports close enough to scrape paint. Kai cursed as he stabilized shields, sweat beading on his brow. They're locking on. 2 more incoming. Alara's hands flew to the comms, broadcasting on open channels in the Coalition's lingua franca. "This is human vessel Relentless. Your declaration is noted. Extermination commences." It was protocol theater meant to sow doubt, but her pulse thrummed with the lie's weight. No speeches, just action. She triggered their railguns, slugs accelerating to fractions of light speed, punching through the lead scout's flank. The enemy ship vented atmosphere in a silent plume, twisting away. But the backfire hit fast. The second scout unleashed a swarm of drones, tiny hunters that evaded their point defenses, latching onto the Relentless's exterior. Kai's screens lit with breach alerts. "They're boarding, hull integrity at 60%. Mira spun from the helm, grabbing her rifle from the rack. "I'll seal it." Alara caught her arm. "We adapt." Kai, vent the outer bays, flush 'em. He hesitated, eyes wide. Venting meant risking their own drones, the clever little bots humanity had engineered from scrap. But protocol overrode sentiment. Kai hit the command, and the ship shuddered as atmosphere whooshed out, carrying the boarders into the void. One drone tumbled free, its lights winking out, a small cost, but it stung. The third scout broke off, engines flaring retreat, but not before launching a missile salvo. Alara watched the tracks converge, her mind calculating odds. "Mira, hard burn to the big rock, use it for cover." The sergeant complied, weaving through the field with grit-fueled precision. The missile barrage detonated against an asteroid, shrapnel pinging their shields like hail. As the immediate threat faded, Ilara slumped back, the bridge air thick with ozone and tension. Kai patched the breaches, his hands shaking slightly. "We bought time, but they're calling reinforcements. Protocol's active system-wide now. Earth's fleets are mobilizing." Mira holstered her weapon, a grim smile cracking her face. "One down, Empire. That's a start." Ilara stared at the drifting wreck on the hollow, its crew silent forever. The Subservience label chafed like chains, but this strike marked the break. Yet doubt lingered. How many more ships like theirs would burn before the tide turned? The Relentless limped onward, scars etched into its hull, a testament to human resolve amid the gathering dark. Captain Elena Reyes gripped the console edge as the shuttle lurched through the debris field, her knuckles whitening against the worn metal. Sparks flew from a nearby panel, illuminating the tense faces of her crew. Jax, the wiry engineer patching systems on the fly, and Mira, the sharp-eyed navigator plotting their next evasion vector. The alien fleet's sensors had locked on hours ago, turning what should have been a simple recon run into a desperate sprint for survival. "They're closing, Cap," Mira said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. She tapped the holographic display, red blips multiplying like angry hornets. "2 destroyers flanking our tail. We can't outrun them in this junkyard." Elena nodded, her mind racing through options. The extermination protocol had been active for 3 days now, humanity's blunt response to the Galactic Concord's decree. Subservient? They'd laughed at first, then armed every ship, station, and colony with the deadliest surprises in their arsenal. But surprises ran out fast against an empire that spanned stars. "Jax, divert power to the forward shields." "We're not running, we're fighting dirty." Elena's fingers danced over the controls, activating the prototype disruptor they'd jury-rigged from scavenged parts. It wasn't pretty, but it could scramble enemy targeting for a precious window. Jax grunted, sweat beading on his forehead as he yanked a cable free. "On it. But if this fries the engines, we're space debris ourselves." The shuttle shuddered as the first enemy volley skimmed past, A glancing blow that rattled their teeth. Elena felt the vibration in her bones, a reminder of how thin the line was between hunter and hunted. Back on Earth, the broadcasts had been grim, colonies falling, fleets decimated. But here, in the Void's cold embrace, it was personal. Her brother had been on Luna when the first strikes hit. No word since. Mira swiveled in her seat. Disruptor charged. Firing in 3, 2. A low hum built, then erupted into a pulse of raw energy, invisible but for the way it warped the stars on their view screen. The pursuing ships veered, their formations fracturing as systems glitched. Elena punched the thrusters, weaving through a cluster of asteroid remnants, echoes of a long-forgotten battle that now served as their shield. "Got him off our scent," Jax announced, slumping back with a relieved exhale. But his eyes flicked to the diagnostics. "Shield's at 30%. We need a dock soon or we're done." Elena scanned the sector map. The nearest friendly outpost was Vega Relay, a makeshift human bastion hidden in a nebula's folds. If they made it, they could relay the intel on the alien patrol patterns, data that might turn the tide for the next strike team. Fail, and the Concord's noose tightened. As the nebula's swirling gases loomed ahead, painting the cockpit in ethereal blues, a new alert blared. Not pursuit this time. A distress beacon, faint and flickering from deep within the clouds. Human signature, but garbled. Could be a trap or a lifeline. "Options?" Elena asked, her voice cutting through the hum of straining engines. Mira hesitated, then met her gaze. "Ignore it. We push to Vega. Check it. We risk everything." Jax wiped his hands on his jumpsuit. "Or its survivors. We don't leave our own." The beacon pulsed again, insistent. Elena weighed the cost, the fuel they'd burn, the exposure. The protocol demanded aggression, not charity. But humanity's grit wasn't just in weapons. It was in refusing to abandon the fight's forgotten pieces. "Alter course," she decided. "We check it out. Quiet and quick." The shuttle banked into the nebula, tendrils of ionized gas caressing the hull like ghostly fingers. Tension coiled tighter as they descended, the distress signal growing clearer, coordinates marking a derelict freighter adrift and silent. Elena's hand hovered over the weapons toggle, ready for betrayal. Docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud and the airlock cycled. Jax led the breach, rifle raised, his cautious nature shining through in every measured step. Mira covered the rear, her wit dormant under the helmet's visor. Elena followed, the weight of command pressing like the nebula's oppressive haze. Inside, emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows over corridors strewn with debris. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just eerie quiet. The signal traced to the bridge where a lone console blinked alive at their approach. "Life signs," Elena whispered. Mira checked her scanner. 1 week that way. They moved as a unit, boots magnetized to the deck. The figure they found slumped in the captain's chair was a ghost of a man. Emaciated, uniform torn, but his eyes lit with desperate fire when he saw them. "You're human?" he rasped, voice cracking like dry earth. Elena knelt, helping him sit up. "Captain Reyes, UNS, who are you?" "Dr. Harlan, biologist. Concord boarded us days ago." He coughed, clutching a data slate. "They took samples, our DNA, tech. Said we're primitives to be uplifted, but I hid this." He thrust the slate forward. "Their weakness. A virus in their adaptation tech. Targets their neural links." Jax's eyes widened. "You mean we can hack their whole fleet?" Harlan nodded weakly. "Protocol's just the start. This could end it." But as Elena uploaded the data, alarms wailed anew. The nebula parted on their external feed. 3 Concord interceptors drawn by the beacon like sharks to blood. Their plan had backfired. The signal wasn't just a cry for help, it was bait, and they'd swallowed it whole. Captain Alara Voss gripped the console as the frigate shuddered, alarms blaring in the dim red light of the bridge. Her team, Jax, the wiry engineer with a perpetual smirk, and Lena, the sharp-eyed tactician who'd seen too many skirmishes, huddled around the holographic display. The alien fleet loomed on the projection, a swarm of sleek iridescent vessels cutting through the asteroid field like predators through mist. "They're adapting faster than we thought," Lena said, her voice steady but edged with frustration. She tapped the screen, zooming in on the lead ship's energy signatures. "That pulse weapon of theirs just neutralized our last drone swarm. We're down to manual targeting." Jax wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers flying over a jury-rigged panel. "Not for long. I've got the auxiliary thrusters rerouted. Give me 2 minutes and we'll slingshot around that big rock. Buy us some breathing room. Alara nodded, her jaw set. Brave didn't mean reckless. She'd learned that leading raids on colony outposts. Make it one. Lena, plot the intercept. We hit their flank, draw fire, then vanish into the debris. The ship groaned as Jax fired the thrusters, hurling them toward the hulking asteroid. Shards of rock pinged off the hull, a staccato rhythm that matched Alara's pounding heart. The alien's declaration echoed in her mind. Not words, but the cold broadcast across human space. Subservient, tools, lesser. Humanity's response had been swift, the extermination protocol igniting sleeper cells and hidden arsenals. But out here in the void, it was just them against the vanguard. Lena's eyes narrowed at the display. Incoming signatures, 3 interceptors breaking off. They're predicting our move. Damn their algorithms, Jax muttered, slamming a fist on the panel. Sparks flew, but the engines hummed to life. Got it! We're ghosts now. Alara strapped in, the G-forces pressing her into the seat. The frigate whipped around the asteroid, engines flaring blue against the black. For a heartbeat, the alien ships hesitated, their formations fracturing as human torpedoes streaked out. Old tech, but laced with experimental warheads Jax had tweaked in his off hours. One interceptor bloomed into fire, debris scattering like confetti. The others veered, but too late. Lena's calculated barrage clipped another's wing, sending it spiraling into the rocks. Direct hit, Lena whooped, but her triumph faded as the main fleet adjusted, a wave of energy building on their sensors. They're charging the big gun. We can't take that. Alara's mind raced. Resource shortage, fuel cells at 40%, shields flickering from the earlier skirmish. No retreat without dooming the colony relay behind them. Jax, can we overload their targeting with the debris field? Turn their precision against them? He grinned, that witty spark igniting. Cautious plan from you, Cap? Love it. Dumping chaff and modulating our emissions. Make us look like a dozen ships. The bridge filled with the whine of systems straining. Alara watched the holograph, the alien fleet's icons multiplying in confusion as illusions danced across the field. Their energy pulse fired wide, vaporizing empty space and shattering asteroids into a blinding storm. Now, Alara barked. The frigate surged forward, weaving through the chaos. They unleashed a final salvo, torpedoes burrowing into the lead ship's underbelly. It cracked, venting atmosphere in a silent scream. But as they pulled away, a stray beam grazed their hull, alarms shrieking anew. Jax cursed, nursing a sparking console. Shields at 20%. We're leaking atmo and engineering. Lena glanced at Alara, the weight of it settling. The colony was safe for now, but the cost lingered. One ship limping home, protocols demanding they press on, no matter the scars. Alara straightened, eyes on the stars. Patch it and plot course. We've just begun making them pay. Captain Alara Voss gripped the console edge as the shuttle shuddered through the debris field, her knuckles whitening against the worn metal. Sparks flew from a nearby panel, illuminating the grim set of her jaw. Beside her, Engineer Kai Ren muttered curses in Mandarin, his fingers dancing over the flickering diagnostic screen. Hull integrity at 30%, he said, voice steady despite the chaos. One more hit like that and we're confetti. In the co-pilot's seat, Lieutenant Marcus Hale wiped sweat from his brow, his usual wit silenced by the blaring alarms. The alien fleet's remnants, twisted hulks of what had once been the Vexari Armada, clogged their path like jagged teeth. Humanity's counterstrike had turned the tide 3 hours ago, but the cleanup was a nightmare. Scans show a clear vector at bearing 247, Marcus reported, plotting the course with deliberate taps. But it'll take us through the hot zone. Your call, Cap. Alara's eyes narrowed on the viewport where a massive Vexari cruiser loomed, its engines still venting plasma in eerie silence. The extermination protocol had been a desperate gambit, virus-laden drones infiltrating their networks, turning ships against each other. It worked, but not without cost. Her crew, down to these 3 after the boarding action, knew the stakes. One wrong move and the virus could backfire, frying their own systems. Take it, she decided, strapping in tighter. We need that data core from the flagship. If the Vexari High Command's logs are intact, we end this war today. Kai nodded, rerouting power to thrusters. The shuttle lurched forward, weaving between spinning wreckage. A chunk of armor plating glanced off their shields, the impact rattling Alara's teeth. Marcus's hands flew across the controls. Incoming debris, evasive. He banked hard, the G-forces pinning them to seats. Through the haze, Alara spotted it. A Vexari escape pod drifting aimlessly, its hull scarred by friendly fire. No, not aimless. Sensors pinged, life signs. One Vexari survivor, broadcasting a distress beacon on an open channel. "They're hailing us," Kai said, surprise edging his tone. "Audio only. Want me to patch it through?" Alara hesitated. Protocol demanded extermination of hostiles, no exceptions. But this one was alone, weaponless, a trap, or a chance for intel. "Do it. Keep weapons hot." The speaker crackled and a reedy voice emerged, laced with the Vexari's synthetic modulator. "Human vessel. I surrender. Coordinates enclosed. Mercy. For knowledge." Marcus glanced at her, brow furrowed. "Could be a ploy to upload the virus back at us. Or it's their admiral begging," Kai added, scanning the pod. "No weapons detected, but their tech's slippery, could be cloaked." The shuttle closed in, tractor beam locking on. Alara watched the pod reel toward their bay, a decision settling like lead in her gut. They'd lost friends to Vexari arrogance, their declaration of human subservience still echoing in every briefing. But extermination wasn't blind slaughter. "Prep the airlock. Full scan before entry. If it's clean, we talk. If not..." She let the words hang, her hand resting on her sidearm. As the pod clamped into place, a new alert flashed. Multiple signatures emerging from the cruiser's shadow. Vexari reinforcements? No, human drones, protocol assets circling back. Timing was everything. Alara stood, motioning them to follow. "Gear up. This could be our edge, or our epitaph." In the dim airlock, the pod's hatch hissed open, revealing a lone figure, tall, iridescent skin flickering under the lights, tentacles coiled in submission. The Vexari's eyes, compound and unblinking, fixed on Alara. "I am Thalkor, strategist. Your protocol. It has doomed us, but I offer alliance. The true threat approaches." Alara's pulse quickened. "Alliance after their edict?" Marcus raised his rifle, Kai hovering by the override. The air thickened with tension, the hum of the shuttle's engines underscoring the moment. Outside, the debris field whispered of battles past. But this confrontation promised to reshape the stars. Captain Alara Voss gripped the console edge as the bridge shuddered, the hum of failing shields vibrating through her bones. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, red lights painting the faces of her crew in harsh relief. "Status, Ramirez," she barked, her voice cutting through the din like a knife. Ensign Ramirez's fingers flew across his panel, sweat beading on his forehead. "Shields at 12%, ma'am." That last volley from the Krell cruiser punched right through. "Hull integrity holding, but we've got microfractures in sectors 4 and 7. He glanced up, his usual wit absent, eyes wide with the raw edge of fear. "They're locking weapons again." Lieutenant Kai Ren, the wiry engineer from the lower decks, patched in from main engineering via the comms. His voice crackled, laced with urgency. "Captain, the warp core's destabilizing. If we don't vent plasma soon, it'll cascade. But venting means we're dead in the water. No evasion, no nothing." Ilara's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of their desperate gambit. The Krell had ambushed them in the nebula's heart, their declaration of human subservience still echoing in intercepted transmissions. Inferior species, submit or perish. Humanity's response had been swift, brutal, the extermination protocol activating across the fleet, turning merchant ships into warships overnight. But out here alone, the stellar dawn was a lone wolf facing a pack. "Options," she demanded, straightening despite the tilt of the deck. The viewport showed the Krell vessel looming, its angular hull bristling with energy lances, a behemoth designed to crush upstarts like them. Ramirez hesitated, then tapped a holographic display. "We could reroute auxiliary power to the forward arrays, boost the particle cannons for a point-blank shot. Risky, but it might crack their armor." Kai's comms buzzed back. "Or I jury-rig the core for a micro-jump. Slingshot us behind them using the nebula's gravity wells. But the strain, we might lose the engines entirely." The ship lurched again, inertial dampeners whining in protest. Alara felt the pull in her gut, a reminder of how thin the margin was. Her crew, Ramirez with his quick calculations, Kai with his unyielding fixes, had gotten them this far, scavenging parts from derelict stations, outmaneuvering patrols with sheer human stubbornness. But the Krell weren't like the others. Their tech adapted, learned from every hit. "No," she said finally, decision crystallizing. Ramirez prepped the cannons. "Kai, start the vent sequence but hold the jump. We're not running. We're ending this. As the orders cascaded through the ship, Alara strapped into her chair, the harness biting into her shoulders. The Krell fired first, a searing beam grazing their flank, sparks erupting from a bulkhead. Pain flared in her side where shrapnel nicked her, but she ignored it. Eyes locked on the targeting reticule. Fire! The stellar dawn roared back, cannons unleashing a barrage that lit the nebula in furious blue streaks. The Krell shields flickered, but held barely. Ramirez whooped, a spark of his old fire returning.
Direct hit!
Their portsides venting atmosphere. Kai's voice cut in, strained. Cores at critical. Jumping in 3, 2. The stars warped around them, the ship twisting through impossible angles. They emerged behind the enemy cruiser, cannons already charging for the kill shot. But as the viewport cleared, Alara's triumph curdled. The Krell vessel spun with unnatural speed, its underbelly revealing a cluster of deployment pods. Boarding craft, swarming like hornets. They're launching intruders, Ramirez said, voice flat. Dozens of them. Alara unstrapped, grabbing her sidearm from the locker. Seal the bridge. Arm the corridors. This just got personal. The first pod slammed into the hull with a thunderous clang somewhere amidships. Alarms shifted to intrusion alerts. The ship's AI intoning breach protocols in calm monotone. Alara met her crew's eyes. Ramirez nodding grimly, already cueing defensive fields. Kai's face appearing on a subscreen, toolkit in hand, ready to booby-trap the vents. They'd bought time, turned the tide, but the cost was closing in. Footsteps echoed through the vents, metallic and relentless. The Krell warriors breaching their sanctuary. Alara chambered around, the click echoing her resolve. Humanity didn't submit. It fought tooth and nail until the stars ran red. Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair as the bridge shuddered under another plasma barrage. Sparks flew from a nearby console, and she barked an order to reroute power before the shields buckled completely. Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7. Engineering, give me everything you've got on those emitters. Lieutenant Kai Ren, her wiry chief engineer, wiped sweat from his brow. His brow in the dim glow of the engine room feed on her screen. His voice crackled over the comms, laced with that unflappable optimism that had kept the crew sane through 6 months of hit-and-run skirmishes. Shields at 42%, Captain. I've jury-rigged the auxiliary generators, but if they hit us again, we're venting atmosphere. One more push like that, and we're space debris. The view screen flickered, showing the hulking Vexari cruiser looming like a predatory shadow against the asteroid field's jagged silhouette. Their declaration of human subservience still echoed in Alara's mind, broadcast across every comm channel weeks ago, as if humanity were insects to be pinned. But the extermination protocol had flipped the script. No mercy, no negotiations, just calculated strikes to dismantle the Vexari fleet piece by piece. This ambush was supposed to be their boldest yet. Lure a supply convoy into the belt, isolate the escort, and cripple it with the Aurora's upgraded railguns. Instead, the Vexari had anticipated them, turning the trap inward. They're locking torpedoes, warned Sergeant Mira Locke from tactical, her fingers dancing over the controls. Mira's scarred face, a souvenir from the first Vexari boarding attempt, twisted in concentration. She was the cautious one, always double-checking scans, but even she had pushed for this op. Incoming salvo, 3 minutes out. We can't outrun them in this debris. Alara's mind raced. The plan had been flawless on paper. Use the asteroids for cover, deploy the drone swarm to overload their sensors, then close for the kill. But the Vexari had adapted, their adaptive shielding shrugging off the drones like rain. Now, with the Aurora limping and the convoy slipping away, failure meant more than just this ship. It meant the fallback position on Epsilon Eridani exposed, thousands of colonists at risk. She couldn't let that happen. Abort the direct assault, Alara decided, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Kai, vent the forward coolant lines, make it look like we're critically damaged. Mira, prep the mining charges we salvaged from the outpost. We're going to use this rock field against them. Kai's response was immediate, a grin audible in his tone. Venting now. That'll sell the ruse, but it'll fry our forward arrays. Hope you've got a clever follow-up, Cap. The bridge crew exchanged glances as the Aurora listed dramatically, coolant spewing in a glittering plume that mimicked a hull breach. On the view screen, the Vexari cruiser hesitated, its weapon ports glowing as it assessed. Alara held her breath, watching the enemy's tractor beams extend tentatively, like fingers probing for weakness. They're buying it, Mira murmured, her caution yielding to a spark of hope. Closing to boarding range. Ilara nodded, her brave resolve hardening. Good. Now we show them what human ingenuity really means. Arm the charges. Let's turn their boarding party into confetti. As the Vexari ship latched on with a metallic groan transmitted through the hull, Ilara felt the weight of the stakes settle deeper. One wrong move and the protocol's momentum shattered. But with her team at her back, she was ready to improvise victory from the jaws of defeat. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the console edge as the shuttle shuddered through the debris field, her knuckles white against the worn alloy. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, painting the cockpit in red strobes that danced across her face like accusatory fingers. Hold her steady, Reyes, she barked, eyes locked on the flickering nav screen where enemy signatures swarmed like angry hornets. Reyes, the wiry engineer with a perpetual squint from years in engine bays, wrestled the controls, sweat beading on his brow. Trying, Cap. That last pulse from their cruiser fried half our stabilizers. We're limping, not flying. His voice carried the edge of someone who'd patched too many hull breaches with duct tape and prayers. Behind them, Dr. Lena Karim hunched over a makeshift terminal, her fingers flying across holographic keys. The xenobiologist's calm demeanor, always the steady one even when dissecting alien autopsies under fire, belied the tension in her clipped commands. I've got a lock on the relay station, but if we don't jam their signal in the next 2 minutes, the whole fleet gets our position. Extermination protocol or not, we're sitting ducks. Ilara nodded sharply, her mind racing through contingencies. The protocol had been humanity's ace. A hidden network of automated defenses, sleeper drones, and viral code buried in the stars since the Subservience decree. But activating it meant painting a target on every human holdout, and this relay was key to coordinating the counterstrike. Arm the decoys. Let them chase ghosts while we slip in. Reyes punched the release and 4 micro-drones ejected from the shuttle's underbelly, blooming into false signatures that mimicked a full squadron. The enemy cruisers veered, their tractor beams lancing out at empty space. For a heartbeat, silence reigned in the cockpit, broken only by the hum of straining engines. Then the comms crackled. Human vessel, this is Dominion Overseer Thalvek. Surrender your craft and crew. Resistance is futile. Your species' subjugation is eternal. The voice was a synthetic purr, laced with the arrogance of 1,000 conquered worlds. Ilara's lip curled. She'd heard that tone before in the camps on Epsilon Prime, where her family had been reassigned to labor details, no more. Tell your overseer to shove his eternity up his exhaust port, she muttered, then keyed the mic. Overseer, we've got a message for you too. Protocol's live. Enjoy the fireworks. Lena's terminal beeped triumphantly. Upload complete. The virus is in their network, rerouting their fire control to target each other. She leaned back, exhaling, but her eyes stayed sharp. It'll buy us 10 minutes tops. After that, their redundancies kick in. The shuttle bucked as a stray plasma bolt grazed the wing, sending sparks showering across the deck. Ilara smelled ozone, felt the heat lick at her boots. Reyes, plot the extract vector. We're not dying in this scrap heap. He complied, his hands a blur. The man who could jury-rig a fusion core from scrap now plotting their escape through a minefield of wreckage. But as the first enemy ships began to spasm, lasers crisscrossing their own hulls in a deadly ballet, Ilara caught a glitch on the long-range scan. A new signature, massive and closing fast. Not Dominion. Something older, hungrier. What the hell is that? She whispered, the urgent question hanging in the air like a noose. Reyes glanced up, his squint deepening. Cap, that's a relic. Pre-subjugation era. One of ours, maybe. Or worse. Lena's face paled as she cross-referenced. It's broadcasting an old IFF, human but corrupted. If it's gone rogue. She trailed off, the implication clear. The protocol had awakened more than just defenses. It had stirred ghosts. Ilara straightened, resolve hardening her jaw. Then we adapt. Punch it, Reyes, we're not done yet. The shuttle surged forward, weaving through the chaos of self-destructing foes, toward the unknown shadow that could be salvation or the final nail. In the hold below, Sergeant Kai Trent checked his rifle's charge, the stock scarred from a dozen skirmishes. The Marine's broad shoulders filled the cramped space, his easy grin a facade over the caution born from losing half his squad to orbital drops. You hear that rumble? Sounds like the party's starting without us. From the shadows, Mira Voss, Ilara's younger sister, the hacker with a wit sharper than her code, rolled her eyes, fingers still tapping on her portable rig. Party? More like a wake. If we don't sync the relay, Mom's old protocols are just fancy paperweights. Her voice held the bite of someone who'd grown up in the resistance shadows, turning grief into grit. Kai chuckled low, but his eyes were serious. Hey, as long as we're breathing, we've got a shot. Your sister's up there making miracles. We're down here making sure they stick. The shuttle groaned as it banked hard and Mira braced against the bulkhead. A new alert pinged her screen. The relic ship's signal strengthening, probing their defenses. It's hailing us. Demanding access codes. Kai shouldered his weapon. Tell it to wait its turn. We've got extermination to deliver first. Up in the cockpit, Alara fielded the hail herself. The relic's voice a gravelly distortion of human speech, warped by decades in the void. Voss vessel, protocol activation confirmed, but you trespass on my domain. Yield the relay or face obsolescence. Her pulse thrummed. This wasn't an ally. Yet Captain Reyes gripped the console edge as the shuttle lurched, stars streaking past the viewport like accusatory fingers. Evasive maneuvers now, she barked, her voice cutting through the alarm's wail. Beside her, Jax hunched over the flickering nav panel, fingers dancing across keys slick with sweat. The alien pursuit craft, sleek, predatory things, closed in, their plasma bolts grazing the hull with searing heat. They're locking on, Jax muttered, his usual wit dulled by fatigue. Shields at 30%. We can't outrun them forever. He glanced at Lena in the co-pilot seat, her face pale but set, hands steady on the thrusters. She'd been the cautious one, always double-checking routes, but now doubt flickered in her eyes as another bolt rocked them sideways. Reyes slammed a fist on the armrest. Their plan to slip through the asteroid belt undetected had crumbled hours ago, when a sensor glitch, damn that jury-rigged EMP from the last skirmish, alerted the patrols. Now with fuel reserves critical, and the hidden colony light-years behind, the stakes pressed like a vice. One wrong move and the Extermination Protocol's fragile network of saboteurs would lose its key relay. Divert power to engines, Reyes ordered. Lena, plot a course through the debris field ahead. If we can lose them in there... She trailed off, watching the tactical display bloom with red icons. The aliens had declared subservience weeks ago, herding billions into labor camps, but humanity's response, codenamed Protocol Alpha, had ignited from the shadows. Reyes's team carried the latest viral code, designed to corrupt the invaders' hive-mind AI. Failure meant not just their deaths, but the unraveling of every resistance cell. The shuttle dove into the asteroid swarm, chunks of rock tumbling in lazy spins that belied their lethal mass. Jax whooped as a near miss sent vibrations rattling their teeth. Gotcha, maneuver Delta. But triumph soured fast. A pursuit craft matched their weave, its beam slicing a boulder in half, shrapnel pinging off their shields like hail. Lena's voice rose, edged with strain. Incoming on our 6. I can't shake it without more juice. She yanked the yoke, the ship groaning as it banked hard. Reyes scanned the readouts. Oxygen nominal, but life support flickered from the power drain. They'd pushed too far, too fast after the raid on Outpost Zeta. That victory had cost them Marco, the medic, his body left cooling in the vacuum, now with wounds untreated and morale fraying. Every jolt felt like a countdown. Deploy the decoy, Reyes decided, her brave facade cracking just a fraction. Jax nodded, punching the sequence. A pod ejected behind them, mimicking their signature, blooming with false heat flares. For a heartbeat, the pursuers veered toward it, buying precious seconds. The shuttle slipped deeper into the field, engines whining in protest. But elation died as the tactical pinged anew. Not one craft, the whole squadron had flanked them, cutting off escape vectors. They're boxing us in, Jax said, voice flat. Lena's hands trembled on the controls, her caution screaming for surrender, but Reyes saw the fire reignite in her eyes. No speeches, just action. They armed the countermeasures, the cabin filling with the acrid tang of charging capacitors. As the first alien ship loomed in the viewport, Reyes leaned forward. Hold on. We're not done yet. The collision warning blared, but in that crush of stone and fire, a spark of ingenuity flickered. Jax's eyes lit on the asteroid's magnetic anomaly, a wild idea forming. They had one shot left and the cost be damned. Captain Alara Voss gripped the console, her knuckles whitening as the alien ship's hull groaned under the barrage. Alarms blared in the dim bridge light, red strobes painting the faces of her crew in flickering urgency. Shields at 20%, she barked. eyes locked on the tactical display where the Xiron dreadnought loomed like a predator toying with prey. Beside her, Engineer Kai Ramirez wiped sweat from his brow, fingers flying over jury-rigged panels that sparked with makeshift repairs. "We've got incoming torpedoes, 3, no 4. Lieutenant Mira Chen shouted from the weapons station, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The first impact rocked the Intrepid, sending Alara slamming into her harness. Sparks erupted from the overhead conduits and the acrid smell of burning circuits filled the air. Kai cursed under his breath, yanking a loose wire free and splicing it with a tool from his belt. That was the auxiliary power grid. "We're blind on sensors for 10 seconds. Hold on!" Alara nodded sharply, her mind racing through contingencies. The Xiron had declared humanity's subservience months ago, broadcasting their edict across the stars like a divine decree. But the Extermination Protocol, humanity's hidden ace, a network of sleeper drones and viral code, had awakened in retaliation, turning the galaxy's undercurrents into a storm. Mira swiveled in her chair, her dark eyes fierce. "Captain, if we don't evade, they'll board us. The Protocol's drones are en route, but they're 15 minutes out." Ilara's jaw tightened. 15 minutes was an eternity in void combat. She remembered the briefings back on Earth, the grim resolve in the Admiral's voices as they activated the Protocol. No surrender, no quarter. Humans had built empires on grit, not gods. Helm, hard starboard, evasive pattern delta. Kai, get me weapons back online. Mira, target their engines. We make them bleed. The Intrepid lurched, thrusters firing in a desperate weave through the debris field of a shattered moon. The Xiron vessel, a behemoth of iridescent alloy and pulsating energy webs, pursued with relentless precision. Another torpedo streaked past, detonating against a drifting rock fragment and showering the viewport with glowing shrapnel. Kai slammed a panel shut, his wiry frame tense. "Laser's hot, but the railgun's offline. Too much strain on the core." Ilara leaned forward, plotting the next move. The challenge wasn't just survival. It was proving the Xiron wrong. That subservience was their delusion, not humanity's fate. In the tense quiet between blasts, Mira glanced at Alara. "You think the Protocol will end this? All those drones, it's like unleashing a plague." Alara met her gaze, the weight of command settling heavier. "It has to. We've lost colonies, friends. This is payback earned in blood." Kai snorted, a wry edge to his caution. "Payback with a side of extinction. Just don't let it take us down too." The ship shuddered again as a Xiron beam grazed the hull, melting a section of armor in a brilliant flare. Alarms wailed anew, hull breach in engineering. Ilara unstrapped, grabbing her sidearm. "Kai, seal it off. Mira, keep firing. I'm heading below to help." She moved with purposeful strides, the corridor lights flickering as secondary explosions rippled through the decks. The cost was mounting. Power failing, air recyclers straining, and the unspoken fear that the Intrepid might join the Protocol's toll. Down in engineering, sparks flew like angry hornets and crew members scrambled amid the chaos. A young ensign, face smeared with grease, looked up as Alara entered. "Captain, the breach is holding, but we're venting atmosphere." She nodded, assessing the jagged tear in the bulkhead, stars winking through like mocking eyes. "Patch it with the emergency foam. Kai's got the core stabilized?" The ensign affirmed, and Alara helped haul a sealant canister into place, her muscles burning from the effort. Above, the battle raged. She could hear the muffled thuds of impacts. The Xiron weren't invincible. Their overconfidence showed in sloppy targeting, assuming human ships were mere pests. But the Protocol's drones were humanity's equalizer, swarms designed to infiltrate and corrupt, turning enemy fleets against themselves. Back on the bridge minutes later, sweat-soaked and determined, Alara slid into her seat. "Status?" Mira reported hits on the dreadnought's flanks, smoke trails venting from its engines. Kai grinned faintly, his wit cutting through fatigue. "We're still breathing. Drones inbound, 8 minutes." The Xiron ship faltered, its pursuit slowing as internal warnings likely blared in their alien tongues. Ilara allowed a thin smile. Teamwork had bought them time, but the lingering breach meant limping home, a reminder that triumph came scarred. As the first drone signatures pinged on sensors, the tide shifted. The Xiron vessel fired wildly, but the Intrepid danced through the void, a testament to human adaptability. Extermination wasn't just destruction. It was rebirth through fire. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the console edge as the bridge shuddered, the hum of the Retribution's engines a low growl beneath the blare of alarms. Red lights pulsed across the displays, mapping the incoming Vexari fleet like a swarm of angry hornets. Her team, Jax, the wiry engineer with his perpetual smirk, Dr. Lena Corvin, sharp-eyed and unyielding, and Marcus Hale, the stoic tactician, huddled around the holographic projector, their faces etched with sweat and resolve. "They're adapting," Marcus said, his voice steady as he traced a finger over the shifting enemy formations. The Vexari had learned from the last skirmish, their shield harmonics now tuned to deflect the humans' plasma lances. One wrong move and the Retribution would be scrap. Elena nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. Jax, reroute auxiliary power to the gravitic disruptors. We hit them where it hurts, their cohesion fields. She didn't wait for acknowledgement. Jax was already elbow-deep in the access panel, sparks flying like fireflies. Lena leaned in, her tablet glowing with spectral analysis. Their declaration broadcast is still looping. Subservient species yield or perish. As if we haven't heard that tired line before. Her tone carried a bite, but her eyes flicked to Elena with unspoken worry. The cost of this war had mounted. Colonies razed, crews lost, and now the Extermination Protocol's final phase loomed. A do-or-die gambit that could wipe out the Vexari core worlds, but at the price of humanity's soul. The ship lurched as a Vexari cruiser unleashed a barrage, kinetic slugs hammering the hull. Elena braced, tasting blood from a bitten lip. Evasive pattern Delta. Marcus, target their command nexus, make it look like we're going for broke on the flanks. Marcus's fingers danced over the controls, plotting the feint. On it. But if they call our bluff... He trailed off, the implication clear. The Retribution carried the protocol's activation key, a quantum virus that would unravel Vexari networks from within. Lose it and humanity's counterstroke ended here. Jax yanked a conduit free, cursing under his breath. Power's holding, but these disruptors weren't built for this output. On surge and we fry the core. He wiped grease from his brow, meeting Elena's gaze. You sure about this? She was. The Vexari had pushed too far, enslaving outposts, dissecting captured humans for study. No more subservience. Flip the switch. Let's show them what grit looks like. As the disruptors charged, a whine building to a scream, the hologram showed the enemy fleet tightening. A Vexari dreadnought loomed, its weapons priming. Elena's heart pounded, the air thick with ozone. This was the pivot. Their adaptation against the aliens' arrogance. Lena's voice cut through. Incoming transmission. They're demanding surrender again. She patched it through, the Vexari commander's voice a sibilant hiss. Primitives, your resistance is futile. Submit or we excise you from the stars. Elena smirked, keying the mic. Tell your overlords the protocol's live. Humanity doesn't kneel. She cut the line, nodding to Jax. He slammed the activator. The Retribution trembled as gravitic waves rippled out, shearing through Vexari shields like paper. Ships buckled, formations fracturing in a cascade of debris. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Elena's eyes stayed on the sensors. One dreadnought held, its hull glowing defiantly. They're not done, Marcus warned, plotting intercepts. The cost hit then. A secondary explosion rocked the ship, venting atmosphere from engineering. Jax staggered, clutching his side, blood seeping through his jumpsuit. Jax! Lena rushed to him, sealing the wound with a med patch. He waved her off, grimacing. Keep fighting. Protocol's spreading. Elena swallowed hard, the lingering sting of loss sharpening her focus. The war wasn't over, but in this breach, humanity's fire burned brighter. The Vexari would learn. Declare us subservient and we'll burn your empire to ash. Captain Alara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, the bridge lights flickering like distant stars under siege. Alarms wailed in sharp bursts, cutting through the hum of straining engines. Status on the core breach? She barked, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. Lieutenant Ramirez, her wiry engineer with a perpetual squint from years in engine bays, wiped grease from his hands on his jumpsuit. It's holding, ma'am, but the Zerathian pulse is eroding the shields at 3% per minute. If we don't vent the auxiliary plasma, it'll cascade to the main reactor. Alara's jaw tightened. The Zerathian fleet loomed on the view screen, their sleek iridescent ships forming a blockade around the human colony world below. It had been weeks since the declaration. Those arrogant broadcasts labeling humanity as a subservient species, fit only for labor in their galactic hierarchy. But humanity hadn't bowed. No, they'd activated Protocol Epsilon. Total extermination of the threat, no mercy, no negotiations. Now with the colony's fate hanging by a thread, her cruiser, the Vanguard, was the last line. "Prepare to vent," she ordered, eyes locked on the tactical display. Private Lena Kowalski, the young sharpshooter turned tactical officer, leaned forward, her fingers dancing over the console. Lena's bravery was quiet, shown in the way she never flinched during simulations, but now her knuckles whitened. "Incoming missiles, Captain. 15 bogeys, ETA 2 minutes. Ilara nodded, her mind racing through contingencies. The plan had been simple. Slip through the blockade, deploy the viral nanites to corrupt their shipboard AIs, and turn their own weapons against them. But the Zorathians had adapted faster than expected, their adaptive shielding shrugging off the first wave. Now the Vanguard was cornered, hull integrity at 62%. "Divert power to forward arrays," Ilara said.
"Kowalski, target the lead dreadnought's command node."
"Ramirez, rig the vents to backflush. Make it look like we're overloading." Ramirez hesitated for a split second, his cautious nature surfacing. "That could fry our own systems if they counter." "Do it," Ilara snapped, her tone leaving no room for debate. She wasn't one for speeches, but her crew knew her grit. How she'd pulled them through the asteroid skirmish last year with nothing but a jury-rigged tractor beam. Trust was earned in the fire, and they'd all felt it. The ship shuddered as the vents opened, spewing superheated plasma in a deceptive plume. On the view screen, the Zorathian lead ship veered, its sensors likely reading a catastrophic failure. Kowalski fired, the railguns lancing out in brilliant streaks, one missile connected, blooming into a silent fireball that lit the void. "Direct hit!" Kowalski whooped, her wit slipping through in the tension, their nodes sparking like a faulty welder. But triumph was short-lived. The Zorathians retaliated, a swarm of drones detaching from the dreadnought, weaving through the debris field toward the Vanguard. Ilara's heart pounded as proximity alerts screamed. "Evasive maneuvers! Helm, thread the needle. Use the debris as cover." Ensign Tarek at the helm was all focus, his hands a blur. The ship banked hard, metal groaning, clipping a chunk of wreckage that sent sparks dancing across the bridge. Ilara braced, the impact jarring her teeth. In that moment, she saw the cost. If they failed here, the colony's evac shuttles would be sitting ducks, millions of lives erased under the Zorathian boot. Ramirez's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering. "Backflush complete. Shields at 40%, but we've got a hull fracture in Sector 7. Sealing it now." "Good work," Ilara replied, allowing a rare smile. Teamwork wasn't just words. It was this, each piece fitting under pressure. The drones closed in, their lasers grazing the shields in sizzling arcs. Kowalski picked them off one by one, her shots precise, but they were multiplying. "Captain, they're jamming our comms to the colony," Tariq reported, frustration edging his voice. "We can't warn them of the incoming strike." Ilara's mind clicked. The nanites hadn't fully deployed yet, stuck in the forward tubes after the initial failure. Override the safeties. Launch them manually through the fracture. Let the Zorathians think it's shrapnel. Ramirez's response was immediate. "Risky, but it'll work. Firing in 10. The bridge fell into focused silence, broken only by the rhythmic beeps of failing systems. Ilara watched the drones converge, a metallic storm ready to engulf them. One grazed the hull, alarms blaring anew. Then the tubes blew, nanites dispersing in a glittering cloud invisible to the naked eye but deadly to Zorathian tech. On the view screen, the dreadnought listed, its lights flickering erratically as the virus took hold. Drones faltered mid-flight, exploding in chain reactions. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Ilara held up a hand. "Not yet. We've bought time, but the fleet's regrouping. Prep for Phase 2. Ram the weak point if we have to." As the Vanguard limped forward, engines whining, Ilara felt the weight of the lingering consequence. The fracture in Sector 7 wouldn't hold forever, and the colony below still burned under orbital fire. Victory was close, but it demanded everything. The bridge thrummed with the low hum of failing systems, red emergency lights casting jagged shadows across the faces of the surviving crew. Captain Ilara Voss gripped the armrest of her command chair, her knuckles white, as the holographic display flickered with incoming data streams. The alien fleet, those towering behemoths that had once demanded humanity's kneel, now hung in fractured silence, their hulls venting plasma like dying stars. But victory tasted like ash. The extermination protocol had torn through their ranks, a cascade of human-engineered viruses, rewriting the invaders' own AI cores against them. But at what cost? Status on the core breach? Alara's voice cut through the tension, steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. She was the rock, always had been, cautious yet unyielding, the one who planned 3 steps ahead while others charged. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, her second in command, wiped blood from a gash above his eye, his usual wit subdued by exhaustion. He leaned over the console, fingers dancing across the keys. Containment holding at 47%, Captain. We've got minutes before the cascade hits our warp drive. If it goes, we're drifting into that debris field. His eyes met hers, the unspoken weight of their earlier failures hanging between them. The botched first strike, the lost squadron, the friends reduced to ghosts in the logs. Engineer Kira Novak, huddled in the corner with a makeshift toolkit, snorted softly, her hands smeared with coolant grease. Brave to a fault, she'd jury-rigged half the ship's defenses from scrap, but now her optimism cracked. Minutes? Try seconds if that protocol feedback loop doesn't stabilize. We turned their extermination tech against them, but it's chewing through our systems like acid. She slammed a panel shut, sparks flying, and shot Marcus a glare. And don't look at me like that. I'm not letting us die out here because some squid-brained overlords thought we were pets. Ilara nodded, her mind racing through the remnants of their plan. The protocol had been humanity's desperate gambit, a self-replicating code, born from years of covert R&D, designed to infiltrate and overwhelm any superior force declaring subjugation. It had worked, shredding the fleet's command structure in a symphony of digital sabotage, but the backlash was biblical. Alarms wailed as another subsystem buckled, the ship shuddering like a beast in its death throes. Options, Ilara demanded, rising to her feet. The crew, down to a skeletal 5, including the quiet navigator who'd barely spoken since losing his wingman, turned to her. No speeches, just action. That's how they'd survived this far. Marcus straightened. We vent the auxiliary bays, isolate the infected nodes. Buys us time to jump, but we'll lose the forward shields. One stray shot from those remnants and we're vapor. Kira shook her head, already prying open another access panel. Or we overload the protocol core manually. Burn it out before it burns us. Risky as hell. Could fry the whole grid. But if we time it right... Her voice trailed off, the image of the fleet's flagship erupting in her mind's eye. A brief, vengeful bloom against the void. The ship groaned, a bulkhead somewhere aft giving way with a metallic screech. Ilara felt the deck tilt, the pull of escaping atmosphere tugging at her uniform. She made the call, her trait of measured resolve shining through. Kira, prep the overload. Marcus, coordinate the vent sequence. Nav, plot the shortest jump to Sol, home or bust. The navigator, a young ensign named Reyes with wide eyes but steady hands, nodded and bent to his task, fingers blurring over the controls. As Kira worked, cursing under her breath, Marcus caught Ilara's arm. Captain, if this fails, it won't. She met his gaze, the camaraderie forged in fire evident in her firm squeeze. We didn't declare war for nothing. Humanity's not subservient, not anymore. The overload initiated with a whine that built to a roar, the console lights dimming as power surged. Alarms peaked, then silenced one by one, the virus's grip loosening like a loosening noose. The ship lurched into warp, stars streaking past the viewports in a blur of blue-white fire. They emerged on the edge of Sol's heliopause, the sun a distant beacon. Cheers erupted, ragged and real, but Ilara silenced them with a raised hand. Scans showed the fleet reduced to wreckage, their declaration of dominance a forgotten echo. Yet the protocol's scars lingered. Half the crew gone, systems crippled, and whispers of retaliatory signals from deeper space. Ilara stared at the stars, the weight of triumph settling like an old friend. Patch what you can, she said softly. We're going home. But tell command, the protocol's active. If they come again, we'll be ready. In the quiet that followed, the crew moved as one, mending what they could, the human spirit unbowed, etched into the stars themselves.